service. What is up, listeners? Welcome back to another episode of the Full Service Podcast. I am Tank Smith, your host. Today is episode 92. Thanks for being here. Shout out to my guest from last week, Samantha Sky. Samantha, I appreciate you coming to the podcast. That was so much fun. People, if you have not yet, check out last week's episode. Make sure you are following Samantha. She is on Twitter at SamanthaSkyX. Her website, meetsamanthasky.com. I have links to all of those in the show notes from last week. Hit the show notes, click the link, show her some love. As always, you can find us on Twitter, on Instagram at FullServicePod. I am at TankFunkadelic. If you enjoy the show, if you like what we're doing here week after week, hit that subscribe button. You'll be alerted as soon as those new episodes drop every single Tuesday. I feel like I say it every week, but ratings and reviews help so much for visibility for the show. So if you can, hit us with a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Write us a review. I will read it on the podcast. It's so much fun. I really love it. If you want to support the show, the best way to do that is by joining our Patreon, patreon.com/fullservicepod. Each month we have at least one Patreon exclusive episode that you cannot hear anywhere else. This month's guest is friend of the podcast, Alexis Reynolds, is joining us on Patreon. So if you want to check that out, patreon.com/fullservicepod. Also, if you join the alcohol tier of our Patreon, you get a free month subscription to the OnlyFans friends of the podcast, Sweet Haley Grace, Alexis Reynolds, and Sophia Soma. So hey, what are you doing? Join the Patreon. Today, episode 92, so excited. My guest is a Bay Area-based companion, Flora Sparks. I guess we sat down and recorded maybe like a week or so ago, so it's new, it's fresh. She is a photographer. She is a teapot enthusiast. She is a master gardener. We talk all of that. We talk her experience in companionship, being her authentic self. She gives advice to other sex workers. We discuss how the last year has looked for her. We talk misconceptions in sex work, Twitter marketing. We talk butterflies. Oh my God. So much fun. You can follow Flora. She is on Twitter at FloraSparksXO. Her website, FloraSparks.com. She also has a photography business, Hey Babe Studios, that she created with Adrian Lalani a couple months ago. And if you are a sex worker in the Bay Area, in New York, hit her up. They are at Hey Babe Studio on Twitter. Shoot her an email, info@heybabe.studio. I'm going to stop talking. I hope you enjoy my interview today with Flora Sparks. Thanks. Welcome back, listeners. It's Tag Smith. I'm so excited for today's episode. My guest is a Bay Area-based companion, Flora Sparks. Flora, thanks for being on the podcast.
Howdy, Tank. I'm happy to be here and happy to spend time with you on
Hell yeah, super excited.
internet.
Hell yeah. Listeners, I am currently in Atlanta. Flora, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining us from the Bay Area in California.
Sweet, sweet. I went to San Francisco maybe like 2011, like 2012, but I haven't been back. I was only there for like less than a day. Do you have any recommendations? What's something good to do in the Bay Area for maybe someone that's never been there before, or I'm coming back? What am I doing?
Well, one great thing if you're in San Francisco is Golden Gate Park is just a really banging park. There is tons of stuff to do there, like so much huge variety that I always recommend people just head to the park. You can go to museums, you can go to the botanical gardens. There's the AIDS Memorial Grove, there's like Hippie Hill, there's like the Japanese Tea Garden, the Rose Garden. There's just, lots of stuff to do in a pretty condensed area. And then there's also, that you're kind of close to some different parts of the city that are a little less, they're like more, I guess, residential areas, but there's a lot of like great restaurants in the Sunset. And,
Okay.
you're also close to the beach over there. You can kind of like, San Francisco is like 7 by 7 square miles. So you can like basically start at one end of Golden Gate Park or like start in the Haight and just like walk to the ocean and see a bunch of stuff. And that's like one of my favorite ways to spend the day in the city.
Hell yeah. What I know, so you got Oakland, you got San Francisco right there. Do you prefer one to the other?
You know what? I'm a kind of greater Bay Area gal. Like over the summer, I got a car. I
Oh
ditched my
boy,
car
hey.
like a billion years ago when I moved to Boston and like drove there once and I never wanted to drive in Boston again. And last year I moved a little, to a little more of a suburban area. So I got a car and I love going to like Napa, up to Marin, and like basically like living in the Bay Area is like kind of being on a perma vacation. Like not just because the weather's great, but because you can go 40 minutes if there's no traffic and get to like a completely different microclimate and different,
Okay,
like you're like, here I'm at a forest, oh here I'm at a beach, like here I am at a mountain, like so
that's pretty
that's
cool.
I'm kind of like love outdoorsy stuff like that. So I
Okay,
have no skin in the game between the Oakland
no
SF
sk-
war, although Oakland is like way cooler. Like
Okay,
people
well we
like
got the
in San
answer.
Francisco, people like are kind of like focused and they got their heads down and they're like walking to work or whatever, or it's cold and windy so they don't want to interact with you. Whereas if you're in Oakland, like if you're walking around Lake Merritt, people will be like, oh, I love your outfit, like, hey, what's up, like your dog's cute, like they're more chatty there. So definitely
Okay,
as you go more East Bay, like people are friendlier, your neighbors are more likely to talk to you, and
okay.
so on.
Oakland wins. Oakland wins the
Oakland
battle.
wins. Yeah. Oakland's a cool spot. It's
Hell
a
yeah.
complicated area. You have like dense urban environments, and then like 5 miles away, you can be in the hills and completely like surrounded by fog and a forest. Like it's,
That's
the
pretty
Bay
cool.
Area has a lot of contrast like that.
Nice. Fuck yeah. I know we are hopefully, towards the end of this pandemic happening. What's something you're excited to do that you haven't been able to do in the past year?
Let's see. I think like I don't know. A lot of my my life as it is pretty well it's pretty conducive to like pandemic life. I like work from home, I do a lot of arts and crafts, but I think the thing I miss the most is like I just really love like daytime indoor tea parties. Like I
Ooh,
really want to have people over like in more than like small groups. Like I want to have like 25 people over to my house because I moved last summer and I haven't had a housewarming party.
oh
So
man,
that's what I'm really looking forward to.
hell yeah! I know if people follow you on Twitter. They might. Yeah, you mentioned the tea parties. You're like a teapot tea enthusiast. What?
Yeah.
How long have you? How'd that happen? How long have you been like collecting teapots and stuff like that?
I think it started in 2008 when I just really wanted to have a Mad Hatter tea party with my friends. And I was like, all right, I'm going to just go to the thrift store. I'm going to get a bunch of teapots and I'm going to get a bunch of really cool teacups and we're going to have this party. And I went to so many thrift stores and I found zero teapots and zero teacups. And it started this like, oh, this is harder to come up. I just thought it would be so easy to instantly collect a cool collection of teacups.
Yeah.
And so I kind of set rules for myself, which were like every cup has to have its matching saucer. Like I don't buy anything like from an antique store. It has to be all thrifted because like you can get yourself a nice teacup collection like really fast in an antique store, but you're going to spend like a bunch of money because they range from like $20 to $50 depending
Oh
on
shit.
how collectible they are. So all of mine have either been like gifts or stuff I've found at a thrift store or at estate sales.
Do you have a favorite like set that you found so far?
Yeah, I have a particular affinity to like Masonic, like Daughters of the Eastern Star merch, I guess.
Oh shit.
Because there's kind of like occulty vibes to it. And so I love to mix a little bit of that occult vibe with like the tea party vibe. I have a lot of goth friends, so it's nice to like be like, all right, some people get the cutesy pink flowers and some people get the goth teacups. I also have some fortune telling teacups.
Ooh, do they
So
like can you tell fortunes with them? Like how does that work?
I can't. It's one of those things where I'm like, list of things to do that are not urgent. And so I haven't learned how to use them, but there's different styles. There's like, I have some where it's like a bunch of like playing cards. I think I can't remember what it's called. Like it was a gift from a family member, but it has all these playing cards. And I think like the way the grounds fall and on which cards, there's like a kind of a numerology thing. Then I have
Okay.
another one that's full of like alchemical symbols and like zodiacal symbols. And then another one that's just like random little symbols, like a key and a sock. And that one's like 100 years old. So I need to
Oh
find
shit.
like instructions on them and then learn the divination
Are you
process with them.
are you using these? Or are you like this like like just like decorative? Or are you
Oh,
like
they're all functional. That's a
nice?
rule I have for myself because I'm not a minimalist, but like I do have pretty extreme like environmental sensitivities. So like if the more stuff you own, the more dust you have, and like mold collects on dust. So I try to
Okay.
keep it pretty like minimal. So if I have a collection, it needs to be functional.
Okay, that makes sense. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Or at least like very beautiful. Like I think my plant collection is not functional per se, but it looks nice.
Yeah, I mean they're making like oxygen or what are they?
They're
What are
making
they? Is that what they're
oxygen.
making oxygen? You
Yeah, they're
know?
purifying the air. They're making
Yeah,
me happy. They're
yeah,
keeping me from getting in trouble.
yeah. You mentioned you're in a gardening club. I feel like yeah, if anybody follows you on Twitter, they're like, no, you are into the plants.
Yeah, I am into them.
What are you growing this year?
Oh, I am growing a lot of things because I have part of moving was I wanted a bigger yard that I could do whatever I wanted. So this year I've been like rehabbing my yard, which the previous person that owned it hadn't really taken care of it for about a decade. So that's just like a
Oh yeah, that's a project.
lot of manual labor kind of thing. Like I think one of the most exciting things I did this year was order 20 cubic yards of mulch
Ooh,
and
damn.
have it delivered on my front lawn. I don't know. It's been 6 months, and I'm like, yeah, that was cool. Like, do I want to do that one more time before I redo
Yeah,
the front yard?
you do. You want
uh,
to do
I
it?
do. Yeah, I've like mentioned it like 6 times this week, so I'm like, yeah, I want to get another 20 cubic yards when the weather's less warm. But the
Nice.
thing I'm growing this year that I'm obsessed with is orchids.
Ooh,
Because
nice.
I've been growing them. I don't know, I think it's 6 years of growing them. Like it started like I was out of town for 6 weeks going on tour with an art project. And when I came back, there was an orchid at the house. And I just started taking care of it. And I eventually asked my roommate, I was like, is this your orchid? And he's like, no, I thought it was yours. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I have orchids now. And I have not been able to get them to rebloom. Like I've been
Oh
collecting more
man.
orchids. I've been like, people give me their sad orchids, and I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. And I finally did this year. And like, I understand what all the fuss is about. I know why people grow orchids. Like, I'm so obsessed with them. Like, they're a very gratifying plant once you sort of master them. So they're just my babies right now. I'm going to do a photo shoot with them like today or tomorrow because
Oh, nice. Fuck
they're
yeah.
finally all bloomed. So they're going to get like a group photo shoot.
Do you have a suggestion for someone? I'm like that's bad at plants. Do you have a what's a plant
Yeah.
for someone that's bad at plants?
Well, I guess my question for you is, are you like an over nurturer or an under nurturer? Like, are you like, I'll water you every day, baby? Or you're like a month later, like, oh shit, I forgot about you.
Definitely the second one.
Definitely a
Definitely.
second
Yeah.
one. Then you either want like a pothos, like they're just a basic green vine. They're kind of like, depending on what kind of soil you plant it in. Like, if you're like, I never water this thing, you can put it in a moisture retentive soil and then
Okay.
water it like once every 2 weeks. Because the cool thing with that plant is you can put it in the sun, you can put it in the shade, you can forget to water it. It will show you, like, it'll kind of look a little sad and then it perks back up. So that's a
Okay.
good option if you want something that's like, you want something, you see it grow, you can train it up your wall. It has other like fun things. If you want something even easier, there's a plant called a ZZ plant that you can basically like put in a dark corner and you water it once a month and it's not going to grow, but it's not going to die. And it's kind
Okay.
of like dinosaur-y looking. Like it's very,
Is it called a
those
snake plant too?
snake plants are also really easy,
Okay.
but that's a different
Okay. Different. Okay.
variety.
Okay.
Snake plants are also good. Big fan.
Okay. I'm gonna get a plant. I'm gonna do it. I need
Yeah,
to.
get a ZZ plant. Like they're start with that and then just be like, it's just one of those plants you're like, you look good.
Okay.
Like, and you're easy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hell
I
yeah.
believe having an indoor or outdoor garden should be fun. And if it's like, whenever people are like, oh, I'm bad at plants, I'm like, well, first of all, you can get a shitty plant from a nursery. And if you don't
Yeah.
have good experience, you don't know if it's you that killed it or if it came dead. And
Hey,
then
that's a good. Yeah.
yeah,
Blame it
it
on the
happens more than
nursery.
you think because I'll have plants that I'll take home and it dies within 3 days, and I'm like, I know I didn't do anything to you,
Yeah.
like you came dead. So that happens quite a bit, especially depending on the nursery and how well they're run. But a lot of times it's just finding the perfect plant for your environment. Like I have types of plants that I'm just like, all right, no more Tradescantia. Like I don't like them for this reason, or they have this care requirement that I just don't want to do. So I just give them away on next door.
Oh,
Like
nice.
that's
That's
part
sweet.
of gardening is like curating.
Okay, yeah. 'Cause at least if you can't like you're like I can't do this, at least like somebody else is able to like take over the lease on the plant, you know.
Totally, totally. Yeah. I love like once I'm over a plant, I'm like, get out of my, my life. Like I get them out of there within a few hours usually. Like a lot of times I could sell them. Like I just gave away like 3 monsteras that I didn't like their growth pattern because I started propagating them and I had like 8 of them. And I was probably could have sold them for $50, but I was like, I just want them out of my house right now.
Yeah, yeah,
And someone can benefit from this. And, it's like it's nice to make money, but it's also nice to just have the convenience of being free.
yeah, definitely for sure.
Yeah.
You are into photography. How long have you been into photography?
I've started getting into photography back in 2003 because, over the years, I've been freelancing in some way, like since pretty much 2003. That's when I first
Okay.
started my first business. And so at the time I had a small clothing line and there was kind of this independent crafter revolution happening all over the country. And, part of it just happened with like Flickr. And this is before Etsy, but people were starting to have message forums where they could share, like, here's what I made and here's what I'm selling. And it was kind of this new cool thing. And so I was just bootstrapping it and I had to build my own website. My first website was on Yahoo stores
Oh, nice.
and yeah, I paid like $40 a month for it and I had to have a merchant account through Wells Fargo,
Oh,
which was
wow.
expensive. And I don't remember doing any advertising or marketing because like I don't think people knew how to like market on the internet at that time,
Yeah,
like do sort of viral marketing or through your social circle. So I don't know how people found my stuff. They would buy my stuff on the internet, people I didn't know.
that's pretty cool though.
And yeah, I still honestly have no clue how I sold stuff. Like I'm just like, how did I? Because I just put it out there and then people bought it. They must have just gone to Yahoo stores and typed in purse.
Yeah.
Like that's is my best guess. So around that time, I learned, I was like, Yahoo stores is too expensive. I should learn how to build my own website. So I went to community college to learn Photoshop and Dreamweaver, and I got a camera so I could do my own product shots. And so that's how it kind of started.
Okay.
And then within a few years, like I was like modeling my own stuff and I started I decided to take some photography classes at the community college to like improve my just photography skills. So
Okay.
I've been taking pictures of myself like since 2003, basically. I was my main model because I was always available.
Yeah. What's some of the like favorite like things you maybe like shot or created? Do you have like a favorite?
Yeah, when I go back in the day, like when I first started, I lived in a rural part of North Carolina, and there's a lot of like abandoned houses and abandoned areas. And I used to like break into this one beautiful, old, decaying, like fall through the ceiling kind of place. But I used
Oh,
to do these
nice.
beautifully lit, like pre-Raphaelite inspired photo shoots. Because I had this like Grecian see-through Grecian gown. So I do these like really romantic things with natural light. And
Hell
then
yeah.
recently, I think my favorite photo shoot was I was just in Joshua Tree like a month ago. And when I got there, the weather, it was like overcast and these stormy clouds. And I just was like, I want to take some pictures before the light changes and I want to smoke a joint. And so we're going to do both of these things at the same time. And so there's zero preparation for the photo shoot and they came out really like awesome because I love when you can kind of express I don't know, the feeling of freedom in a photo shoot. Like that's kind of something when I'm taking photos of myself, I try to look really like relaxed and like embodied is kind of one of my like goals when I'm shooting. So
Okay.
that shoot, it just nailed it without even trying.
Was that the Hunter S. Thompson photos you have?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Hell
That
yeah.
wasn't even on purpose. I didn't even plan my outfit. I just like went into my bag and I was like, it's cold, so I need a jacket. So I'll put on my Carhartt jacket and I don't feel like putting on any of this lingerie. I'll just put on a pair of fishnets and my cowboy boots and these stupid glasses and grab my joint. Like I literally got ready in 3 minutes and it came out good. Sometimes those things happen.
See, I feel like it has to like feel good when it just like works out like that. Like you just put something on, you're like, oh my god, this is great. What the fuck? Hell yeah.
Yeah. No, going through the film, I was like, I nailed the first picture. Like the first picture was one I used. Usually like it takes a few like and this is working with clients as a photographer or with myself. It usually takes, the first 10 photos are you like trying to figure out where your face goes. But every once in a while you just like bam, you're ready. You nail that first shot. So it was just
Hell
one of those
yeah.
times.
I feel like your photo shoots are like super detailed. Like how what kind of planning or like I guess prep goes into like creating the like perfect aesthetic for like a photo shoot.
For me, I have a very aesthetic life. Like, many years ago, I dated someone who only wore one color. I won't say the color to protect this person's privacy, but living with this person and examining their really extreme like focus on one color really encouraged me to like tighten up the colors I liked to wear. So like all of my house and all of my clothes all are within a certain range of colors. So for
Okay.
me it's really easy. And I have a few like outlier colors. Like I'm like I don't wear red a lot, but I'll have a few red pieces of lingerie that contrast really well. So for me, it's kind of this holistic thing where everything's kind of looks ready, photo shoot ready. And then I just, if have I very rarely plan my solo shoots. Like sometimes I'll just like look at my roses and be like, I need to take a picture with these roses right now. Okay, what am I
Yeah.
gonna wear? And go into the closet. Every once in a while I am like, okay, we have to do this beach photo shoot and I want like curtains blowing and I want a tea party. And so I'll get a vision and then reverse engineer it from there. So
Okay.
I do both, either like zero prep, we're just doing this right now, to like, you know, I get an idea and then I schedule it and get really hardcore organizational with it.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. But I love the process. Like I have a background as a like doing costume design and performance art. So for me, doing photo shoots is kind of just an extension of my creativity. So I'm always it's always in the back of my mind, or I'll see something that will inspire me and be like, oh, I want to try that, or I want to, everybody does a milk bath photo shoot. Like, how can I do that, but make a little twist or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, kind of just thinking about it all the time. Because that's honestly one of my favorite parts of the industry.
Just like the photography side of it.
Taking photos, which I don't sell any of my content online, and I really need to. I just don't really want to do the work of selling it. But
Yeah.
I love taking the content. So I have to figure out, still working on how to make that, because I'm just like, I have all this content and I like making it. I
Yeah.
just don't want to put the effort into selling it. So I'm doing it for the joy, the creative
The
joy.
the creative joy. Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
If I can figure out how to profit off of it more than, like it works it's easy content, it's easy advertising. But if I can figure out another way to monetize it, I will.
Okay. Hell yeah. What's something that you're passionate about?
Something that I'm passionate about. Oh, I have attention deficit disorder, so like I'm passionate about like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things. So but
It
so like
changes constantly.
photography, plants, like if I decide I'm interested into something, like I really rabbit hole on it, like because I want to get to a level of like understanding before I make a decision.
Yeah.
So like current obsession right now is like I'm really obsessed with like nail art. So
Okay.
like at the beginning of the pandemic, like we couldn't go to the nail salon, and then my nail person moved to LA. So I was like,
Oh
all right,
fuck.
I got to figure this out on my own. So I was like, what do I pay a month for my nails? And how long is this pandemic going to go? Can I invest in professional or like semi-pro quality materials
Okay.
and teach myself? And if I do it, basically I was like, if I do this 6 times, it's completely paid for itself.
Oh
And then
nice.
if I never want to do it again, I don't have to. But it turns out I really love it. Like I watch, like I probably watch like an hour or two of nail content a week on on YouTube and being like, okay, like how are they doing that? You know? So that's my current obsession is nail art.
I feel like I've just learned through this podcast so much about nails. It's truly incredible.
I know. I know. I mean, yeah, it's so cool. Like I wasn't really into my nails until I got in the industry and I was just like it's just practical to do gel manicures because my nails are always ready. I don't have to mess around with them before a session. Like they're good to go. You know, because if you get it done right, it can last like sometimes I'll do my nails every other month because I do like a clear bottom so it
Oh,
grows
nice.
out. So it's for me, it's like a practical thing.
I feel like yeah, like now, like I'll see people's nails just in public, and I'm like, oh shit, those are
Nice
some good,
nails.
good nails you
Yeah.
got there. Hell yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, once you start paying attention, I mean, it's like any little niche hobby. Like there's so much room for creativity and the stuff people do with nails is just bananas. Like I'm
Yeah.
just like I could never do that. Like you've got like spinning beads in there. You've got like I watched a girl do like a snow globe, like
Oh, wow.
like a
What?
working snow globe on her nails. I was like, that's
A
some wild
working
stuff.
snow.
A
Holy
working
sh!
snow globe, yeah.
Wow, that is incredible.
Yeah. I was like, I could never do that. I'm sure I could if I set my mind to it, but I have no interest in having like something projecting off my nail like half an inch, but like
Yeah.
more power to her. You know, some of that
Wow.
stuff you just do for pictures.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like at some point you got to have like a little bit of practicality.
Totally,
And
totally.
there's 5, 10 snow globes.
I know. People will usually do like one nail that's got like the snow globe. And like I
Okay.
always like leave three of my fingers like short so I can like, I don't know, do stuff with them. But
Yeah. That'd be cool. Like an 8 ball, a magic 8 ball. You just shake up your hand and
oh,
then it
that'd be
gets
so
you just
cool.
read
I'll
their read somebody's fortune.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you'd have to I'm imagining how you would do that now. I'm like you'd have to the hard part would be figuring out how to make the little floaty thing. Like
Yeah,
making the ball and like inserting the liquid is the easy part. It's fabricating that tiny thing.
man. Wow.
Yeah.
That'd be
Hmm.
sweet. Ideas.
That would be sweet.
Ideas are
Like
coming.
a good for work. You're like survey Magic 8 Ball says no.
Yeah.
Magic 8 Ball says maybe.
Yeah. Hell yeah, Flora! I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yeah, I
Thanks so
appreciate you
much.
having me. Yeah.
I always like to, like start at the beginning of, everybody's like kind of like sex work journey. Can you remember your first exposure to sex work at all?
I was thinking about that, and I think I first remember the first dominatrix I interacted with when I was like it was like 2007, and I met her at a festival. And at the time, for whatever reason, balloon porn was really
Okay.
the talk of the internet, and people were like intrigued by it, and like I think they were making jokes about it on like shows and stuff, and I was very like just intrigued because I I grew up pretty religious and like kind of sheltered in certain ways, and
Okay.
so I just was like, oh wow, people can like balloons like for sex. And so I
Yeah.
imagined like clowns making like balloon dildos, and like that's kind of where my imagination went. And so like the first time I watched balloon porn, which was like a girl hugging a balloon and like caressing it, and there's like balloon popping, and I just was like, oh, this is very different like than I expected.
Yeah.
And so that kind of idea was running through my head mentally. And I met this dominatrix and was like, balloon porn. Don't you think it would be great if there was clowns that like made like balloon animals and then like fucked people with them? And she's like, that's such a great idea. I run
Wow.
fetish parties. Like, I'm going to use that idea for a fetish party. And so I unfortunately wasn't able to go, but she did a whole like balloon fetish scene where she hired a clown, like a sexy clown that made like a balloon like harness and like balloon dog and like fucked someone like for the party. And I kind of just like the creativity of that. Like I was like, you can, this is your job. Like your job is to throw like sexy parties and to like beat people like and dress up in cool costumes. Like that's so cool. And that kind of is how I first heard about it as a job, and then like over the years I just became friends with more and more dominatrixes, and then made friends with a few escorts, and those are a lot of my really close friends and have been since like 2007.
Hell yeah. What was your? How did you decide to get into it? When did you start?
I started I in like November of 2018 was when I like started my Twitter
Okay.
because that summer I had gotten diagnosed with like Lyme disease and a mold illness and like had to move because of the mold in my house, and I was just kind of like reading the writing was on the wall that I needed to like work a lot less and spend a lot more time like resting.
Okay.
And I had over the years I loved hearing like my friends' work stories like about like the time in the dungeon or like this public humiliation scene, and I was always just like, your job sounds fun. It sounds like a lot of work, but it sounds fun. And I always was like, could I do this? Like, would this be a fun job for me? And then around that same time that I was dealing with all of that like health stuff, one of my really good friends, I always just assumed that she was a waitress because she always had cash and she worked odd hours.
Okay. Yeah.
So I just assumed she was a waitress. And then she was like, oh no, I'm an escort. I'm like, oh my God, you're an escort. I just assumed you were a waitress. I know, it just in my head because she had worked food service before. You know, she just had a lot of cash and worked weird
Yeah. It's
hours.
just a
Like,
Michelin star restaurant, you know.
yeah, yeah, totally. And then she's like, oh no, I'm an escort. I'm like, oh really? Can you tell me about it? And so that she basically was like, read Lola Davina's like Thriving in Sex Work,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
and then
It's a good book.
think about it. So I read the book, and then I was like, okay, I definitely want to do this in November. And she was throwing a party where a bunch of sex workers were going to be there, and she's like, why don't you come and like meet people? So I went to that party, met a bunch of people, started my Twitter before I even had done a professional photo shoot. She was basically like, you need to do a photo shoot, and you need to get Twitter, and then that's pretty much all you need. And so I didn't actually start advertising until March because there was some like life, I had to quit my full-time job, and
Okay.
like I like to research stuff a lot before I officially do it. Like looking back, I should have just done an ad like first thing, because it's not like, so I was like, oh, what if I take an ad and like a billion people email me? It's like, that's not how it works. It
Yeah.
says
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
your ad out first, worry about your Twitter later.
Yeah. Had you like so like you're kind of interested in it and you have friends that are in the industry. Had anybody said anything to you like, "Hey, I think you should do it," or were you kind of just like on your own thinking like, I think I kind of want to do this."
Oh, I had been told I would be good at it, and I do a lot of like performance art, or I did. Like I don't do it as much anymore cuz it's just like pretty intensive on my health, but like a lot of my collaborators were dominatrixes, so we would do like performance art installations that had like a BDSM component. And so they were like, you could do this for your job because you're doing this for art, you
Yeah.
know? So but I had to kind of like think about that and like think about, do I want to be a Dom? Like, do I want to do escorting? Like, how do I want to participate in this? You know, do I want to do porn? Because I've made some porns like on myself, like with myself or like with friends to like, you know, we entered into the, um, like some porn competitions before, like amateur porn competitions.
Oh, nice.
So I'd like experimented with making porn before. So I just kind of like had to like observe all the different ways you can participate in the industry and then figure out what would work best for me. Cause like basically like they were like, yeah, you'd be a great Dom. And then I looked into like what you get paid at a dungeon. And when you start out at a dungeon, you're like folding towels and
Oh,
like
really?
getting paid like next to nothing. And I was like, I don't want to, like, I basically didn't know you could go independent. Like, and once I
Oh,
learned
okay.
that you could go independent, I was like, heck yeah, that's what I want. Like, I want to
Yeah,
be my
yeah.
own boss. I don't want to, you know, I'd rather learn on the job than like have to like fold towels.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with that. It's just for my personality. I've been freelancing and have been my own boss like off and on for a really long time, almost 20 years now. So
Oh,
like
fuck yeah.
it's you know, for a reason. Like, you know, I enjoy working that way. I like working on my, you know, making my own decisions about how my to run my business.
Yeah. Did you like so having so many friends in the industry getting in, did you kind of have an idea or did you kind of feel like you knew what you were getting into sex work, or is it kind of like does it differ once you get in, you're like, "Oh, this is different than what I thought," or having those friends, did that kind of like I guess alleviate that like that unknown getting into sex work?
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise for me is I really assumed like every guy would want a strap-on session. Because that's basically, even my
Okay.
escort friends were like, oh, I gotta go, gotta do a strap on session. Like, that's all, everyone was always doing strap on sessions. And I just was like, I'm gonna be doing that all the time. Like, I need to invest in a good harness. Like, I need to get an assortment of dildos and whatever. And it's happened literally twice in 2 years. Like, and I advertised, like, I'm down for this. Like, I don't know what it is. I really assumed I would be doing it constantly. So that
Yeah.
one, that one was a big surprise. Like, I advertise as kink friendly,
Okay.
and I do very few kink sessions. I think
Interesting.
it's because I don't advertise as a dom, because like I love role play. I love, like, kind of, like, I don't offer, like, I like corporal, but I don't like have a latex outfit. So I'm kind
Okay.
of curious to like see what happens if I do like a PVC photo shoot, like if that changes my clientele, because I do love catering to fetish stuff. Like, it's super fun.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I feel like maybe, yeah, if you, yeah, if I feel like the photos, they can't do anything other than like help, you know? Like people are like, they see
Totally.
this and they're like, oh, fuck, hey, like she advertises kink
Ah,
friendly,
I
but
know how that works.
hey, let me get
I
her
know
the
what to
butt.
do with a over the knee vinyl boot.
Yeah.
I know what that means. Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing that like I wasn't prepared for was how I like a lot of the people that see me really love to talk to me. And I
Okay.
really wasn't expecting that. I thought I was going to be like, you know, doing tricks and like, you know, more focused kind of like on the physical things and like my
Okay.
appearance. And like all my clients love to talk and cuddle with me. Like, I must be just like chatty, cuddly
Hell
looking.
yeah.
So that's, which I love. I love chatting and cuddling. So I when that started happening, I was like, oh, cool. This is great. Like, I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
thought I was going to be, swinging from the lampshades more.
Yeah. What do you think your biggest challenge was? Do you have a biggest challenge starting out?
Oh, my biggest challenge was, learning that like I just didn't know that many alternative providers in the like escorting. Like, all my dom providers were alternative, but like in escorting at the when I started, I didn't really have any alternative colleagues that I knew. And once I started making friends that like marketed as more alternative or hairy or curvy, it like totally changed. Because at first I was trying to fit into this certain like look,
Oh, okay.
and it wasn't really, I wasn't doing it well because it's not my personality or my body type to look this certain way. But I was like, oh, I guess this is how you do it, because that's what my mentor did and it worked for her. But pretty soon after, I realized I'm older, like I'm a different body type. At the time I had pink hair, like I'm not going to fit
Oh,
into
nice.
this certain look. So marketing authentically, like, really, once I made that realization that I could just like be myself, or like, it's like a version of myself with like personal details removed,
Yeah.
like where I live and, my biography. But that really helped me a lot. And I like love who I meet when I started advertising that way.
Do you feel like the clientele changed when you did kind of switch it up like that?
I didn't go too far.
Okay.
So I only saw like one or two clients that way. And so as soon as I switched, I started getting like, my third client I ever got like saw me for like over a year pretty regularly.
Oh,
So
nice.
like once I started showing more of my personality, I attracted people that wanted to spend more time with me instead of just like,
Okay.
all right, let's see you for an hour. Like,
Yeah, yeah. That
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
Do you feel like you have an average clientele that comes to see you at all? Is that a thing?
I've been kind of trying to like figure that out. I like, I think that Uh, before the pandemic, I did like had kind of like older Gen Xers and like younger boomers who were
Okay.
like into like meditation and music and kind of artsy stuff. And then since the pandemic, I'm like, what is the through line here? Like, I can't tell. Like, maybe it's just that you guys like tall, curvy girls that have red hair. Like, I can't,
Yeah.
can't quite tell, So my clients are pretty varied, but they're all like really like nice, and everyone loves their dogs. Like, I don't know if because I don't write in my advertisement like must love animals, but like I always end up talking about like animals with my clients. So
Hell
I think
yeah.
that they're liking me for like because I seem like friendly and like open-minded, I think is I think that's sometimes why people pursue like a like I don't know at what point like you become considered mature in the industry. Like I'm 37 and like on some sites like people 35 call themselves mature. So like
Yeah.
whatever,
Okay. Yeah.
that's like I whatever you become mature, quote unquote. But I think the clientele that are looking for a mature provider want someone who's like not going to, that's like, you've seen some things, you've had people ask you weird stuff, and like people can kind of, I think people feel comfortable to ask me stuff really candidly, and they
Okay.
know I'm going to be like kind about it. Like
Oh
you
yeah.
can't really shock me at this point.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you
You've
can, it's
lived.
possible.
You've lived.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you feel like people when they reach out to you, they know what they're doing? Like clients potentially. Do they know what they're doing when they reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, you can tell like when someone, like I have an autoresponder that if someone emails me, like if someone somehow misses on all of my ads, like use my contact form. If they somehow miss that and they email me, I have an autoresponder that's like, here's my contact form. And
Okay.
if they fill out the contact form within like 10 minutes, I know I'm going to see them because they've like can read the instructions. And so whenever people email me and don't do that, I'm like, all right, I'm going to try to like get them scheduled, but realistically like they've already failed the first like question of the Sphinx, which is like fill out the contact form. So
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes I feel like those time wasters know what they're doing though. Like they're, I'll like they're not trying to book. They're just trying to like get free conversation. So they're
Yeah.
pretty easy to spot. So,
That makes sense.
I think, I think people, I try to make it easy for people. I have people that are new that say like, I'll ask them like, how did that go? And they're like, that was really great. Like you're like, I learned this doing custom costuming, that just give them all the information ahead of time, even if it's on your site, go over it again in the email, and then you answer all their answer all their questions before they can ask them, and that simplifies the booking
Okay.
scenario.
Okay. Like being like an event planner and like curating events for people, do you find yourself doing that in companionship as well?
You know what? I sort of retired from that industry just because it's like such a stressful industry. It's like
I
it's
bet.
really fun. It's so fun. Like I love, the last event I did was an unlimited budget and unlimited creative control,
Oh my
which was
god.
so fun. Like
Holy shit.
dream job. But, with that freedom comes great responsibility. Like you're literally like, "Hi, I'm a magician.
I feel
Like
like the
I
pressure
can."
has to be on like
It's really high, and especially when you're dealing with venues, like they all have different weird rules, and some are like, we must follow this local ordinance," or we're a historic building, so you have to have this, seismic person to come in to make sure you can haul in whatever. There's a lot of shenanigans for it. So I've kind of come to appreciate, like, I think in our world we're like really, we're constantly connected to the internet and to things and to our job, but we aren't often connected like on an individual level and a conversational level. And so I'm super willing to build an experience for my clients. Like I have some clients that love to do role play, and I love role play, like love, 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 love. But I think a lot of my clients just want like compassionate connection. And so I find myself kind of doing that more, and like listening. And, when you're in a transactional relationship, you have kind of this, you cut through a bunch of the kind of get to know you things, and you can be really frank with people because that's kind of the nature of the relationship. And so I'm not saying I'm a therapist, but sometimes people will be like, you know, I'll, I feel confident that I can give people my candid opinion and have these
yeah.
really kind of like emotionally honest conversations with people, and that's something I end up doing a lot. And if someone wants to do a production, I'm happy to do that, but really the former comes up much
Yeah.
more.
It is cool because it is like just like a super honest relationship to where it's like, hey, we know what the deal is, but you can just be honest and open and
Yeah, it's like this weird, you create this space together where you're like, all right, we know what's going to happen. We know why you're here. And so we just skip a bunch of this mystery where we're like, when you go on a date, you're like, okay, is this going to work out? Like, because if you go on a date with someone, you're like, do they want to get married? Do they want to have kids? It's really easy to like spin out on like the future. Whereas
Yeah.
with a client, you're like, we're here for this time, and this time is really special. And we can be really candid and open with each other, because we've, you know, to get to this place, we had to share, you had to share private information about yourself. So I feel safe,
Yeah.
and now that we feel safe, we can kind of have this emotional honesty.
Yeah.
Um,
Cuz yeah, like so many with so many relationships just with people outside of work, it's a different thing, but it is like just a singular like we can be honest in this space because we know
yeah.
what this relationship is between us kind of.
Yeah. There's no, there's mystery because, whenever you meet another person, there's unknowable things and beauty in that, but you're also like, we know what's going to happen here. So
Yeah, for
that
sure.
eliminates some of the mystery, and you can have, I know that's I think the thing I like the most is connecting one on one in that way, just as much as like fulfilling someone's fantasy. Like fantasy fulfillment is also fun, but emotional connection is just as satisfying for me.
Yeah. Do you feel like do you feel in a session at all like any pressure at all to live up to clients' expectations? And I say that like do you feel like it's changed in the beginning versus now? Was there any
You
pressure at the
know,
beginning to like I want to make this good or like was has it changed at
yeah.
all?
So when I first got in the industry, I spent a lot of time like reading Reddit and talking to my friends and, just making kind of observations. And reading like, Lola Davina's book too. And I quickly realized that like I'm not gonna fake stuff. Like I'm gonna approach this as like earnestly as I can and give people I want to be fully present for my clients. So that's I think that's something that's come with age because that's something I do in my, private sex life is like I don't do things I don't want. Like I feel very comfortable telling you no and offering an alternative. And so I've been doing that since I started because I just was like I don't want to harm myself by doing stuff I don't want because like I am quitting my full-time job and my performance art like career, my artistic passions. I'm simmering down on that to take care of my health. And so I do whatever I can to like minimize my stress, and that's part of it for me.
That makes sense. Hell yeah. Do you So on your website, right? You like during this pandemic, a lot of people we haven't been able to see people, so we've had to do like virtual stuff or distant stuff. On your website, you have like virtual offerings like GFE texting, pen pals, like phone and video companionship. How's your experience been doing that?
So before the pandemic started, like, because I've always loved shooting content. Like the first, I'm going through and archiving my photo shoots right now, and within the first like week, I did 3 photo shoots because I love doing them so much. And so I was always like, I should do OnlyFans. I should do content. And so that was something that was like niggling on my brain, but I was, dealing with like my health and, other things. And so when the pandemic happened, I felt this like intense pressure to whip something out and to create a remote service. And so I like kind of like was stressed out about that, and then I was like, I'm not going to do it. And I decided to rebrand like right at the beginning of the pandemic because it had been on my mind to do a rebrand. And I'm going to focus on the rebrand. I'm going to redesign my website. And I think I hadn't even finished my website. Maybe that was part of it, but anyway, I didn't have a good website up. So when I did my website, I was like, I'm going to offer digital services like in case I in case people want them. But when the pandemic happened, like I basically started in 2019. I did my first ad in March, and
Okay.
then simultaneously I was doing the biggest event of my life. So I spent that year barely working and barely advertising. And then in December of 2020, well, November of 2020, or sorry, 2019, I did a 10-day meditation retreat and was
Ooh,
like,
nice.
I'm going to retire from the event production industry for 2020, and I'm going to focus on my companionship career. And so then
a lot of
2020
a lot of
happened.
people had dreams, A lot of people had big
Yeah.
dreams, big.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a forced retirement. And so that kind of happened during while I was doing all this personal decision making. So I hung up my shingle there, but I didn't have a big clientele to like, I basically had one regular for that first year and then
Okay.
like a couple people. And so I didn't have any regulars to transition into a digital agreement. So I've not actually seen any clients digitally because I did not try very hard. I put it up there in case people wanted it, but I didn't promote it at all
Hey,
because I
we're
think my
talking about it
heart
now. It
truly
can happen.
wasn't in it. Yeah, it could happen. I mean, I'm open to it. Like I love, I enjoy talking to people. So I just didn't really. I'm still figuring out this whole like Twitter marketing thing. It makes like I have had like one client from Twitter, and I'm
Really?
like, I put so much work on Twitter, and everyone says it's one of their best marketing tools, and I just have not seen that. So I'm like, is it my demographic? Is it me? Twitter,
Interesting.
all the work on Twitter I've done for my personal brand for Flora,
Yeah.
it's paid off for my photo business that I started with Adrian Leilani. Like it's paid
Okay.
off for that because people can see like, okay, you seem nice, you make good photos, like, it paid off for that. So, I feel good about Twitter, but I still haven't figured out the Twitter marketing thing. But
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I feel like so many people are on Twitter. It's like, hey, you're
Oh yeah.
doing good things on Twitter. What are the people? Hey,
Totally.
what's your
And some
Twitter? Every
people say
follower.
they yeah, some people say they book all their clients on Twitter. So I'm like, is it just the demographic of people that likes me is just not on Twitter? I have very few clients that are on Twitter, period. They didn't even know that there was like this whole sex worker Twitter world. So I'm there for the community and it would be nice to get clients off of it. But at this point, I've just decided like I'm only going to do what I enjoy.
That does make sense because I feel like a lot of the majority of people that have the like I guess potentially the spending money like to spend on like sex workers, they're probably not the demographic that's like huge on fucking Twitter.
Well, I think there's a lot of like tech workers that see providers and then they're on Twitter. But the through line with most of my clients, I realize, is a lot of them own their own business.
Okay.
Like, I have a lot of people that run their own business or like, a lot of like kind of, um, uh, like either like construction companies or those variety of things. Like a bunch of my clients are small business owners, and so
Okay.
I don't know what about my profile says like I also run a small business. But I think when you're running your own like I don't know carpentry business, you might not need to advertise on Twitter or participate, and
Yeah,
you're busy with that.
that makes
So
sense.
that's been my theories. I don't know if it's true. There's We can have our theories, but some of these things are unverifiable since
Yeah,
we're under the radar.
it's hard to know. It's hard to know. So, do you feel like since the pandemic's kind of coming to an end, do you feel like business has picked up at all? Like, do you feel like more people are reaching out due to like the vaccine being out there and
Oh
stuff kind of
yeah.
opening up a little bit?
Yeah, I think I went like 8 months with 0 inquiries. And I was fine with that because I didn't feel safe about it. Like I have an immune system disorder. Like my immune system like dials everything up to 11. Like so like it's not immune compromised, it's immune activated. So I was
Okay.
like I don't want to get sick. Like I'm really careful here. I did see like a regular client like a couple times because I trusted him and we did the testing, but like I wasn't really wanting to seek out new clienteles. But pretty much like, after I got vaccinated, like things were like popping off like they had never popped off before. Like I had a family member in town, like staying in my guest room because like everyone had gotten vaccinated and they felt safe to travel. And like I was not advertising, I was not on Twitter, and I had many more sessions than I've ever had in a week, like without putting any effort in. And so I'm like, okay, there are market factors outside of my control
Yeah.
impacting this. Like I wasn't paying for an advertisement at all.
Wow.
Like, yeah. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't understand how this works.
Hey, maybe they're coming from Twitter. You never know.
They weren't. They found me on my free Slixa ad. Like I
Oh,
haven't paid
really?
for a Slick. Yeah, I haven't paid for a Slixa ad in like 2 years. And but when you search like providers, like curvy providers over 35, I'm like one of 5 people.
Ooh,
So
nice.
yeah, so like people for finding me on like an ad platform I wasn't even paying for. I'm like, okay,
That's good. The
like
demo's coming up. Nice.
yeah. So it's slowed down since then. I think everyone was like I'm free.
Let's
And,
get it. We're
let's
out of the
get it
house.
right now, and tax stimmy, got that stimmy. So,
Ooh, hell yeah.
it's, yeah, it slowed
That
down a
definitely
little
helped.
bit, but it's actually okay. I was a little bit like, oh my God, I guess I got to take the work when it's coming, but this is more work than I'm accustomed to. I'm
Yeah.
a stay-at-home dog mom. I'm very busy.
Gotta fill the bowl and the water. And
Yeah. Well, at the same time that work picked up of, my Adrian and I started our photo collab, like Hey Babe Studios, like we started in March, and
okay.
it just popped off. So like while work was getting busy, like I think we did like a dozen photo shoots in like 2 months. Like I stopped being able to count because I was just like, oh my God, another photo shoot. Like
Yeah. Watch good
oh,
though.
where am
That's
I? It is good. No, it's like you have to do like something for 10,000 hours. I think you have to take like
yeah.
10,000 pictures. The stuff I really wanted to like challenge, be like, can I do a shoot in the middle of the day and find a way to take pictures? Like, what if someone can only shoot at noon? Like, can I
Yeah.
figure out a way to get great pictures of them? And
Okay.
it was really good to have that, like, okay, this person wants to shoot inside a dungeon. There is one tinted window and it's in between a large building, like how I normally love to do like natural light photography. It's
Okay.
like I'm going to watch some YouTube videos and learn how to use supplemental lighting.
I didn't realize the whole light thing until like I got a Polaroid like a couple years ago, and I've been taking Polaroids ever since,
Oh, they're so
and
fun.
I love them. It's so great. It's yeah, but
It's
I didn't realize
artifacts.
I didn't realize how much. Oh, yeah, you like I like having the prints. Like I have so fucking many.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize like how important like light played into taking a photo because you can. I mean, you can have like such. Oh, like this is so great, and then the lighting's shitty, and you're like, well, this picture is horrible, but it
Yeah,
looks.
yeah, we've all been up at 2 a.m. at a party and been like, I'm going to take this great picture. And then you look and you're just like, what the heck is happening here?
Yeah.
And cameras are getting better and better, like with the ability, the sensitivity of the sensors, but like nothing beats, really good, like a south facing window at the right time of day.
Yeah. What are some like maybe challenges or like frustrations maybe you might have within your job right now?
I think honestly, I think my biggest frustration is like for a really mundane thing was I was actually so frustrated with my long nails. Like I have a bunch of writing to do. And I like was like, I'm growing my nails out till they either break or I lose my mind. And I lost my mind and I cut them all off a few days ago because I was like, I typed my whole newsletter with them and I like hated every moment of them. And
Oh
so
god.
there's that very like mundane thing where I'm just like, I hate my nails right now. I need to type them. But I think the biggest thing that frustrates me is like I've lately been getting tons of people reaching out to me to do content, being like, I saw your ad on Trist. I'm a male porn performer. Do you want to do a scene with me? And I'm like, no, like first of all, like I don't know you.
Yeah.
Like, what makes you think you can cold call me? Like, I don't know. I find that very frustrating, and I just ignore it. I don't write back to them. I mean, they get my autoresponder,
Yeah.
but for that right now, that's really like burning my toast. I just think it's so inconsiderate. Like, I don't know, like make some friends, like get on Twitter, like
Yeah.
make genuine connection with someone, and then see if they do content, and then shoot with them. Don't like fucking cold call an escort. You know,
Yeah.
and if I do want to do content, I know people to do it with. Like I'm not going to do it with a stranger.
Hey, yeah, my friends on their OnlyFans, they'll get people reach out and they're like, "Hey, do you want
Oh, I
to,
bet.
do you want to shoot content? You need more boy
Yeah,
girl
trade
stuff
shoot.
cuz I got a dick."
Boy,
Hey.
girl, boy, girl.
Yeah.
People love boy, girl. B/G.
B/G. The people love it. Verified.
They also like the G/G and the,
And the
you
G
know,
slash G slash G slash G.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can really
I,
put as
there's
many slashes and G's, and
totally,
people like
totally.
that.
I have a friend who I'm helping like get some of her content like on, she has her own site, but I was helping her get it onto some of the other clip sites. And the tags, I don't know, I want to build like
Oh.
a porn generator where it takes all the tags on like many vids, and it was like, because there's some things, because this person does like fetish stuff, and I was like looking for like the vacuum
Oh,
vacuum
okay.
cube tag, and it's not on there. but vacuuming was on there. And I was like, oh, maybe that's like what they call like vacuum play. And then I
Yeah.
go and I'm like, no, they're
It's just people
vacuuming.
vacuuming.
Is there
Yeah.
a vacuuming fetish? And like there was one that was like Baroque flute. I was like, there's a
Really?
Baroque flute tag on like
Is
many
that like
beds.
somebody like dressed like a flapper playing a flute?
I
Is that
don't
like what is
know
I
because
don't
Baroque's like medieval, not medieval, but like you know many hundreds of years ago,
Oh shit,
like
okay.
bard stuff, like D&D stuff. So I'm
Ooh,
like,
interesting.
I didn't look because I was doing, I was trying to tag this stuff, but it made me
Yeah.
think like I should make a generator where someone can be like, what content should I film today? All right, you are doing like girl Baroque flute, vacuuming. One of them was butterfly chasing. I was like, is it butterfly chasing? Like, is that like a slang for something vulgar, or is it like
Literally just
literally like skipping through the backyard chasing butterflies?
yeah. It'd be hard. You gotta find the butterflies first in order to make that
I know you have
content.
to build the garden. You have to build the butterfly garden, and then this is just a pro tip for the gardeners out there. If you build a butterfly garden, don't use pesticides because if your plants are getting eaten, that's what's supposed to happen. The butterfly larvae eat the plants and then they turn into butterflies.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, people do that. They're like, the caterpillars are eating my butterfly plant. That's the point. They're
I
supposed
need
to
to tell my I
devour
need
it.
to tell my parents that.
Yeah, tell your parents that because that happened to me. I was like, "What's going on with my milkweed? Like this thing looks busted." And then I was like, "Oh my god, there's monarch caterpillar butterflies, and my plant wasn't mature enough, so I had to like find a butterfly rescuer." This happened like March of last year, so it was like pandemic shenanigans, and I
Yeah.
like had to find like a butterfly rescuer, and I put the caterpillars in a shoebox and bicycled them to a butterfly rescuer because I didn't have enough food for them.
That is so sweet. That is
I, well, I planted it to get monarchs, and then I was like, the plant's not big enough. I don't. What if they die? Like they're endangered. The populations are down 90%. Like, and that's bad,
yeah.
And I don't want to impact this by not having enough food for them.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta have enough food for the butterflies, or what
You
do
have to
you?
have enough food for the butterflies. That's
Definitely.
what they say. They're like, don't, if you're introducing butterfly larvae to your milkweeds, like they need to be at least 1 season old so that they have enough food.
Wow. I'm
Yeah.
learning. I'm learning so much.
Yeah. I love pollinators. I think they're essential. So I'm a big fan of pollinators and doing what I can to
Hell
like,
yeah.
that's what the whole reason I wanted to get a house with a big yard was so I could turn it into a butterfly garden to make, because you can get registered as like a backyard wildlife zone.
Ooh,
Like,
nice.
yeah, it's really cool. You get like a sign. You probably have to pay for it, I bet, but like whatever. Like it probably gets donated to like a butterfly rescue nonprofit, but you have to like provide food, you have to provide shelter, you have to provide water. Then you get to have this cute little sign. Or you have to agree not to use like pesticides. And so
Okay.
that's like my goal is like to have that sign. Like I'm doing it for the clout in
For
the butterfly garden community.
the You're just cooler than everybody else at the garden party because you're like, yo, y'all got this butterfly sign? I'm a motherfucking.
Yeah.
I care. I care about the
Yeah.
butterflies. What are you fucking doing?
Yeah, I didn't just plant flowers. I gave them a habitat.
Yeah.
No, I don't throw around that. I like I want to I try to talk about it a lot just cuz I'm like you can put a little pot out there with like one milkweed and you
Yeah.
could save like 20 monarchs.
Damn.
It's like, just do it's like instead of being like, "Oh, I can't do I can't turn my entire yard into a butterfly garden." It's like, "But you can put out a pot of milkweed for them. You can do a little bit."
See, I don't know what the butterfly situation is in Atlanta, but I just moved to a house and we have a yard. I feel like I could get a milkweed and like, support the
Yeah, I mean,
local
see what
butterfly
so
community.
milkweeds, yes, see what butterflies are cool, like and they're all cool, but like see which ones are native to your area and figure out like, oh, we've got like swallowtails, so we'll plant this like funnel or whatever. I can't remember what swallowtails eat, but you can figure out your local butterflies
Okay.
and like plant the food they like.
Okay.
And it's so fun. Like I don't know, it's so cool. I have my milkweed. I'm like going on about this one milkweed, but it attracts like aphids like crazy. Like it's
Okay.
covered in aphids, and they're really like pretty weak. So if you spray them with water, they just die. But I was like, what happens if I let the aphids grow? And I started attracting ladybugs. And so now I have like hundreds of ladybug larvae on this bush that are eating all the aphids, and then they turn into adult adult ladybugs that lay more eggs. So I have this whole like eco like like ladybug aphid ecosystem going, and then like pretty soon I'm like, all right, then now the monarch butterflies need to happen. And just in this one plant, I've created so much like diversity for like
This is
beneficial
wild.
insects. And I'm like, what if my whole like when my whole yard is this? Like I've already made a difference to these like 100 ladybugs, which in the bucket of ladybugs where there's bazillions of them, it's not that many, but it shows me that like even a little bit of effort has great results when it comes to helping out beneficial insects.
I feel like you could just like you already got the camera, set it up, and then you could just like film like almost like a David Attenborough kind of like lifestyle, like what's going
Totally.
on with the ladybugs and the
Okay, here's the problem. Right now, my front yard is the most exciting, and I live in a very residential neighborhood. So I try to keep the nudity to inside or the backyard. So,
okay.
so I couldn't do like erotic content in the front yard.
Okay.
But once I'm done rehabbing the backyard, like that's one of my goals is to have a full, like, photo shoot worthy, pollinator friendly backyard. So
Hell
when that
yeah.
happens sometime in the next decade. Uh, right now, it would be me being like, this is my mulch pile.
Hey, that's
I
still
got
good.
20 cubic yards of mulch. This is my wheelbarrow.
We're just belly flopping in the mulch, having
Oh
fun.
my God,
Yeah.
no heckin' way. My dog does, though. She loves, like, we covered, like, we had just had really shitty grass that was full of like weeds and foxtails. And so that's why I did the mulch. And I was like, oh, my dog's back there laying in the mulch. Like, let me put like a blanket out there so she can be comfortable. No, she likes the mulch. She likes laying in it. She loves how it feels in her fur. She's like, she's like 15 pounds, so she's pretty
Oh,
short, and she
nice.
just loves getting covered in it. Like it's her favorite thing. She's just to sunbathe, belly up, rolling in the mulch.
That sounds nice.
It is nice. Sometimes I see her little ears and they're like bright purple because she's so warm. Like there's just so much blood in them. Like I'm just like, you're having a great time. You
Hell
you
yeah.
have a good life.
Man, so much. This is so much plant talk, butterfly talk. I love it. I love this.
Yeah, it's
Um,
pretty wholesome over here.
hell yeah.
Except for when it's not wholesome.
Except for when it's not.
Like
But
it's not, yeah, it's like I'm really not that wholesome. Like I'm a pretty big pervert, but like I love to like a lot of my activities are very wholesome. So maybe that's why people aren't booking me for kink sessions. It's just like, oh, I don't feel like a tea party. But I'm like, no, I do enjoy humiliating people, and I love beating them. So,
yeah.
you
So I
know,
mean, hey, people.
that's on me
Hey,
to,
people. What are you doing?
yeah, yeah. I'm going to do a kinky tea party photo shoot sometime soon.
See, that'll be
So,
yeah. Hell yeah.
yeah.
Do you feel like sex work has helped in other aspects of your life?
Oh, yeah. Of all the jobs I've had and all of the like freelance things I've done, I like you work a lot to be a successful sex worker. You work a lot, but it's incredibly flexible. And when you're compensated, it's compensated very well. Whereas like when you're a costume designer, like people are so used to, buying clothes from like Target or Forever 21 that when they're like, I want you to make this elaborate thing for me and I only have a $200 budget, and you're like, this is going to take me like 15 hours to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the amount of work I had to put into my creative passions to like barely make a living was so much work, and I found it really frustrating that I stopped doing custom sewing like many many years ago because I just couldn't stand it anymore. Like
Yeah.
I didn't want to deal with people wanting to underpay me. And so, but that really has helped me with my sex work career where I'm like, no, I'm in a place financially that like if someone's bugging me, like I don't have to see them. And I recognize that that's a very privileged place to be, but I my experience in freelancing ineffectively and poorly or not being compensated well over the years like really helps me now to like really stand up for myself and take no BS and you
Hell yeah.
know market myself in a way that's authentic so I attract clients that I enjoy spending time with.
Fuck yeah.
So,
What do you feel like might be some misconceptions that the general public have about sex work?
I think that like a lot of people think that sex work is like incredibly glamorous all the time, I think there's like popular media portrayals, like, because I read like Diary of a Call Girl and a few other like books about sex workers, and like my day to day with my sex worker job is like so different than like what kind of was portrayed in that book. And obviously everybody's going to be different. There's a lot of us that are like, live basically the stay-at-home dog or cat mom life, where we're like taking care of our house and taking care of our plants and focusing on staying grounded and staying healthy, so that when we are with clients, because like even if you know there's a performance aspect to this job and a physical labor aspect, and so it's important to be like well rested and healthy. So I think there's like a lot of people in the industry that are like we're kind of boring. Like I'll be on Reddit and I remember someone being like, what's asking a question about sex workers and their day-to-day life, and most of the people were like, my day-to-day life is like incredibly mundane, and I like it that way because like my job is very exciting at times, but a lot of it's just administrative work and planning.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's a lot of mundane aspects to it, and it's good. You can lead a simple, I part of why I got into it was like I want good work life balance. I want time to vibe and relax and take care of my health and not be stressed out.
Yeah.
So that makes me like, you know, kind of boring in some ways, but unless you're really into butterflies.
Hey, unless you're really into butterflies, then this shit is exciting. This is.
Yeah. Thrilling.
See, I feel like, this is good because I feel like maybe somebody is in the Bay Area. Maybe they're potentially a client. Maybe they're like really into butterflies. Maybe they're really into dogs. Maybe they're really into plants, and
Yeah.
they're hearing this, and it's all coming together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Schedule time with me if you want to talk about your dog
yeah,
and how awesome they are and what nice ears they have.
yeah,
And I can do that to you too.
yeah,
You know, I love human animals.
yeah.
I love animals of all kinds.
Like, hey, you got some nice ears on you. Let me just rub them a little
Yeah.
bit,
Yeah.
make you feel good.
Yeah.
What do you have any advice you'd give anybody that wants to get into companionship?
My advice for people wanting to get into companionship is, don't like you don't have to like look whatever you look like, someone's going to like you. Like you don't need to have you don't need to look like whatever you imagine escorts look like. You can just look like yourself. Like if you don't want to have long nails, you don't have to have long nails. If you want a shaved head, you can have a shaved head. If you want pink hair, you can have pink hair. You know, it might change your demographic that's interested in you, but that's not necessarily bad. There's someone out there for everyone. And, I think part of my advice too is, just start advertising right away, like as much as you can afford to, because you can spend a lot of time like building up, like until you've actually had face-to-face time with clients, like you don't know what you want your brand to be. So if you put all this work into your brand ahead of time, like you might decide you don't care for your brand like 6 months in.
Yeah,
And so you can just take some pictures and put them on the internet and see what happens and then refine from there. Like I wish I had started advertising like 6 months before I actually did. I was just so nervous. I was like, what if I don't have all these things ready? What if my website's not done? What if? And instead I just should have put an ad up and then gotten over those initial like first awkward appointments and figured out like where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do with it.
I think like it's one of those things too where it's like you just have that fear of the unknown and not knowing like how it's going to go, and then just like the hesitancy getting into a new thing. Like no matter what you're doing, I feel like there's always going to be that
Oh,
initial like, oh,
absolutely.
can I actually do this thing?
Yeah,
And
like what
then you
happens
realize
when I
once
get
you get,
alone in the room with someone?
yeah.
Am I gonna freeze up or say something embarrassing or tell them my last legal name like within
Yeah.
30 seconds? That was one of my fears, was like, do I refer to myself accidentally a lot? Like
Which use a lot of I pronouns.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So let's take a little trip to the future, right? We are now in 2026, 5 years from now. Where are you? What are you doing?
I am probably going to be doing very similar things to what I'm doing now. I have, this summer is actually the 10-year anniversary of like my first like major injury. Like I injured my back really badly 10 years ago and was
Okay.
like couldn't walk for a couple months.
Oh
And
shit.
that kind of started, I didn't realize that was an aspect of having like Lyme disease and having like chronic soft tissue issues. So the past 10 years for me have been like a mix of like, I've been like bedridden for like several months at a time, 3 times in the past decade. So at this point in my life, I'm so happy to be like mobile, to feel good, to have like my house and my dog and my plants. That for me, I've just realized that like you can have all these plans for yourself, but sometimes circumstances beyond your control happen, like, a pandemic or a chronic illness. And so for me, my focus is like my meditation practice and staying grounded and staying healthy and staying compassionate, to my clients and the people around me and the people of the earth. And so like I don't have like in 5 years I'm going to graduate from something or I'm going to make $1 bazillion in my business. I've just learned that like those kind of goals don't work for me,
Yeah.
but staying grounded and focusing on like kind of that lifestyle aspect of living is what I plan on doing. And
Fuck yeah.
stuff comes up, like
Yeah.
I didn't plan on starting a photo business. It just happened. So it's like I'm open to like I'm focusing on those things so that if an opportunity comes up that I haven't even thought of, I can take it if it interests me.
Yeah. I feel like,
So,
just like as you get older, you just realize how much that you just don't know what the fuck is about to happen.
oh, totally. You never
Like,
know. Like, it's like there's the past 10 years for me have been like, extremely tragic things have happened. I've had to move because of mold. I've uprooted my life. I've like had like several major moves in the past 10 years. And I'm like, I never want to move again. That's one
yeah.
of my 5-year goals is to never move again. And to not have a moldy house. Like that's another goal. And so like I kind of like I don't know, I think when you have a chronic illness sometimes like you get really down to basics where you're like, what are the things that are important to me? Like what
Yeah.
do I enjoy spending my time doing, and do I want to deal with, what kind of shenanigans am I willing to deal with, or what shenanigans am I not willing to deal with? So
Yeah.
it's like I used to make my life really complicated, and now I'm like, I just like living a simple life and occasionally complicated, and learning. I
Yeah.
love learning. And so it's like having that space to like learn about things,
Fuck yeah.
is good.
Hell yeah. Do you, before we get out of here, do you want to leave the people on a story? Do you have a story for the people?
Yeah, I kind of want to just like, I think share an experience I had when I first got in the industry, because like I hadn't been advertising because I don't know, I was kind of clueless, but I'd been on Reddit and someone had talked about like, oh, you can advertise on like a cuddle website and then people will approach you for like extra services. And I was like, and it's free. So I was like, okay, let me try this and see what happens. And I got a dude that was like, I want to book you for a cuddle session. And he's like, are you open to fetish stuff? And I'm like, yes, I totally am.
Hell yeah.
And he's like, I want to do a tickle torture session.
Ooh,
And
nice.
I'm not ticklish. So I was like, yeah, totally. And I was like, I can pretend to be ticklish. So I agreed to do the session. And then after a while, I was like, oh shit, 4 hours is a really long time. Like now I know I'm like four
Oh,
hour appointment. Like you
fuck.
need to have like a meal, you need to do an activity, you need to have more than tickle torture planned.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we're doing this. I've already agreed to, we've already negotiated the price. And then when I was prepping, he was like, oh, I also like feet. Can you wear stockings, socks, and yoga pants? So
Okay.
I'm wearing all this clothes and I like go to his place and I'm sweaty because I'm wearing all these layers, and he like had offered to like roll me a joint and smoke with me, and I got there and he didn't have a lighter. So we spent like 15 minutes like very awkwardly while I was trying to find a lighter, and we're like, okay, that's not happening. And then he wanted to get into the session, and I very quickly realized, like, he basically was like, I'm a tickle top and I want to tickle torture you. And I very quickly realized that he was a tickle, like a foot bottom. What he really wanted to do was just have my feet in his face. And so
Okay.
basically, I like just put my feet on his face for several hours. And like, he tickled me a little bit and I'd be like, hee 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 hee. And eventually he just fell asleep. And I like with my feet on his face. And so I watched Machete, like by Quentin
Oh,
Tarantino, because that was what was on. And I was like, couldn't really, I was kind of like clueless. I'm like, should I move? Should I change it? Like, I guess I kind of wanted to see this. And so he eventually like wakes up, like, right as in the final like battle scene. And I'm like super into it. So I'm like, oh yeah, this guy, like, I don't know, his wife and stuff happened, and I explained the whole plot to him, and then I just like packed up and left. It was like a
That's
very strange 4 hours. Like I've never had a session like that ever again, because that was like literally the first time I ever saw someone who
yeah.
was paying me for that. It's just now I'm just like, all right, I know how to sculpt a 4 hour experience. We're gonna have snacks. We're gonna do activities. Like he didn't like talking either. He wasn't chatty.
Oh
And
wow.
like, yeah, because he'd found me off a cuddle website, like it was a little bit like how I was marketing myself there was very different. So like
Okay.
now I'm just like very like people know what they're getting on my ads,
Yeah,
escorting
yeah.
ads. That's the point of the escort ad. You're not trying to like shift a cuddle client into a sex work client.
That's
So
incredible though. That's pretty sweet.
yeah, it's like I
You
don't
just
know. It
watch
seems
Machete with your feet on his face and
I
he's
know,
passed
I
out.
know. Like when I was reading about it on Reddit, I was like, okay, like you could do this. Like why not? And now I'm like, maybe I'm not. Maybe I should just go for the escort site. Like just pay for an ad. Like it's just easier. Like people know what's going on instead of being like mysterious.
Yeah,
And now
yeah.
I know how to ask too, like, what questions to kind of ask. Cause I could have definitely have figured out a little more information before seeing him, but I was just
Oh,
kind of
okay,
like
yeah.
taking what he was saying at like face value. And once I read between the lines, I was like, oh, it was very clear from the beginning what you truly wanted.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I feel like it'd probably be hard to know that just starting out. Like now you
Oh,
look back
totally.
and you're like, oh shit, wow, the
Yeah.
signs
It's
are
so
all there,
obvious.
but you know,
That's why I say like just start advertising as soon as you can and as soon as you're comfortable, because the first few sessions are probably going to be weird and you
yeah,
can just like get it over with, and the process of negotiating with a client is something that like takes some time to get used to. And so the sooner you can start that, the easier it's going to be to then refine those things that set you apart from other people.
yeah, hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
Flora, I appreciate you coming to the podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had a ton of fun. I appreciate you hosting such a great podcast, and I enjoy. I'm a listener too.
Oh shit,
I'm a friend of the pod.
thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I just love hearing other people's experiences, because there's a variety of different experiences you can have in this industry, and it's really expansive to hear how people run their businesses differently and how they got into it, and their opinions on what I think is a very interesting industry.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you listening. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Where can the people find you on social media?
They can find me. My Twitter handle is at Flora Sparks XO. And then my website is florasparks.com.
Fuck
And
yes. People,
yeah,
Flora
those are the
Sparks XO,
places.
florsparks.com. Follow her. I appreciate you coming on. I
Come
really do.
for the plants, stay for the pictures of my ass.
Hey, people, come for the plan, stay for the pictures. What are you
Yeah.
doing? Do it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Listeners, we will be back later. That was my interview with Flora Sparks. Shout out Flora. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. That was such a good time. Listeners, she just plugged it. You can find her on Twitter at FloraSparksXO. Her website, florasparks.com. She mentioned it briefly in the interview, but she has a photography company, a collaboration with her and Adrian Lalani. If you were a sex worker in New York, or if you were a sex worker in the Bay Area, she does photography. That is at Hey Babe Studio on Twitter. If you want to shoot them an email, you can, info@heybabe.studio. I will have links to all of those in the show notes from this week. Hit the show notes, click the links, give them some follows, show her some love. As always, you can find us on Twitter, on Instagram at Full Service Pod. I am at Tank Funkadelic. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to the podcast. You will be alerted as soon as those episodes drop every single Tuesday. Ratings and reviews help so much for visibility for the show, so if you can, hit us with a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Write us a review. I will love you forever, and I'll read the review on the podcast. It's one of my favorite things to do. This has been episode 92. I appreciate you being here. We will be back next Tuesday. Ooh boy, what's happening? I'm feeling a solo episode happening. I'm feeling it. Who knows? I will tweet about it. So make sure you're following us on Twitter at Full Service Pod. If you want to be a guest on the show, if you want to hear anything talked about on the show, if you just want to write in, let me know. Hey, Tank, I had this for dinner, fullservicepod@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. If you want to support the show, the best way to do that is through our Patreon. You can find us at patreon.com/fullservicepod. Each month we have at least one Patreon exclusive episode. Also, if you subscribe to the Outcall tier of our Patreon, you get a free month subscriptions to the OnlyFans of Friends of the Podcast, Sweet Haley Grace, Sophia Soma, Alexis Reynolds. Join the Patreon. What are you doing? But hey, I appreciate you being here. We'll be back on Tuesday. I hope everything is good wherever you are. I will see you then. Later. Full service.